Hello, it's December 7th. It's almost end of the year, and it's a SIG Node CI group meeting. Welcome, everybody. We have many agenda items today, so let's get started. I mean, is it you, right?
Yes.
For the first item?
Yeah.
Do you want to
So
introduce the document?
sure. I was reading briefly about this, but I think this fits good in what we are achieving here. So the first milestone is specific. I think you have read and has better context and better opinions about it, but I just bring it here.
Okay. So yeah, there are many efforts, like specifically even this effort was created in response on like problems that we had in I think 2 releases back when release blocking jobs were flaky and crashing and like I mean all sorts of problems, and it delayed the release significantly. So this like this CI group effort was created out of it, and also some people started thinking how to improve tooling and how to improve um, how to say not responsibility, like how to improve how to make people more responsible for tests and how to increase visibility into failing critical infrastructure tests. So yeah, I think Wojtek started this effort of creating a reliability working group across entire Kubernetes. So we are working on SIG Node specifically, and he's suggesting that we're not even only like helping create tools that educate our decision on what is failing and what we need to pay attention on, but also enforces this work by merging, like by blocking PRs for specific SIG. So the idea is that all tests will be marked for specific SIG, and whenever tests of this SIG start failing, all PRs from the SIG will be blocked. Yeah, this is ultimately the idea, and there are more into this document and how to make it happen, how to like do additional tooling. So if you're interested, please take a look and read it. I mean, it's a novel idea for me. I see how this enforcement can backfire, especially with smaller contributors, like with first-time contributors or like contributors who just want to work on their specific feature because they like end users, for instance, who doesn't want to understand all the problems that Kubernetes has. At the same time, I mean, it's a good engineering practice to know that if something's broken, don't break it more, fix it first. So I'm interested in other opinions, like what people think. So I would say right now, all our PRs will be blocked because right now we have this this one. One of the critical tests is failing, and like before we had like a couple of weeks of investigation of the broken critical test. I think like months ago. So quite often tests will be broken and we will be in bad shape. But at the same time, it will mean that more people will start looking into this test failures, and we may get in better shape faster.
Yeah, anything that gets more people looking at the tests would be good. I think there's a disconnect between the CI and the pull request test runs. So if there was a way to feed the CI runs into the PR status, even temporarily or sort of randomly once every couple of PRs, such that people actually look at them, I think that would be good, because I think what happens is how do you even know the CI runs exist for the most part, especially if you're like you said, a single issue contributor kind of thing. And you're definitely not going to come back after your PR merges and go, oh wait, the CI, like the CI seems to break irrespective of a PR. That's my point.
Yeah,
What?
I
No,
think
go
we
ahead.
have the alerting for the jobs as well. This is one part of this process that Jorge set up, and I think this is kind of working. I don't know. So
Yeah, it's working in a sense that we know about these failures. It doesn't work in a sense that we may not care for them for a week or maybe even months.
okay.
Yeah, I think that's the problem that this proposal trying to address. I'm not in Kubernetes for long enough to understand how critical it will be for community. It definitely will be great for explaining what have you been doing and like why you're spending so much time on that. Like this is because like all the test needs to be clean and yeah, that may be a good thing. What do you think about a release process and this merge blocking? Maybe Jorge, you have some opinion. My feeling is at least like last release, we had so many so many features going hot and being merged in last maybe less than a week before code freeze. And specifically in this release, I've been investigating a critical test failure. I mean, given I did it very slowly, like because I had some other work, but like this critical test failure would have blocked all the merges in a SIG node, even though it wasn't SIG node related, it was from SIG storage. But that would have been a problem, and then release would miss so many features because all the features were running very late. Jorge, do you have any opinion about like how to front load this improvement work, or maybe like how to delay the release if this kind of issue appears?
So just to make sure that I completely respond to your question, I'm gonna rephrase it and tell me if I understood or if I'm missing the point. Your question is, how can we block the release if we see that that an issue from some other SIG is blocking us and impacting our ability to land features?
No, I'm not. I mean, this specific example, it was different SIG introducing the bug, but I can easily see that how flakiness can be introduced by one of the PRs in SIG node, and this PR will block all the improvements that were planned for release, but cannot be merged because I mean, people start merging releases very late, like a week before code freeze.
So I don't think I'm following perfectly. So let me rephrase again and tell me what I'm missing. So the issue will be that it can happen that someone is gonna do something on Kubernetes, it's gonna break it. But are you saying that when code freeze comes around, there isn't a lot that we can do to fix it? Is that what you're referring to, or?
It's more like, I mean, imagine code freeze is Friday, and today is Monday, and many people were planning to release or like to merge their PRs and like cleaning up. Like let's say we have 10 improvements that are running hot for this release, so like 10 big PRs needs to be merged. And now this is a situation of 120 release. We had so many PRs being merged in the last week. And now, like one of these PR, or like maybe even PR before that, introduced some flakiness in the tests, and we are investigating this flakiness for like maybe 3 days. So after 3 days, we only have like 1 day left for code freeze, before code freeze, and we still have all this improvement, like all these features to be merged. So I think, I mean, I'm just afraid that it will call for a lot of heroic effort to unblock all those features to be merged, and it will be situation every release.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now I think I understand. And this is not so much an answer as another related thought that came to mind while listening to the conversation. I think a lot of contributions that we get, and I don't know if they are the bulk of it or if they are the a lot with some of the I guess I should say some of the contributions that I see that pop up every now and then are people that are interested in a feature. I use Kubernetes. I want to do X with it, and I'm gonna make a PR on it. And as you all already mentioned, it is a little bit too complicated to uh, to try to onboard to try to onboard new contributors. If you want to fix something, not only did you have to figure out how to do it, but now you have to figure out how CI works. You have to learn the whole stack. Brow, it's amazing, but it's not the most. It's not the simplest thing to wrap your head around. Brow jobs are a monster. Everybody has their own test suites, and I think that is I definitely think that is a problem. One thing that comes to mind is that I don't know if there is a technology solution for it. Something I think that's something that we can strive to is to make things simpler, nicer, better. Everything can always be improved in one way or another, especially if we have a lot more feedback, which is the case with. I think it might also be a people issue in which and I guess the reliability proposal tries to get to this a little bit more. If you want to contribute to Kubernetes, it's amazing and we welcome it, but I guess to some extent we also do need people who are willing to commit to not only just do a one time contribution, but who are willing to contribute a little bit more of their time. And we need to figure out how to make that possible, because we cannot expect uh, everyone to become an open source contributor, because people have jobs, families, different life situations. But we need to I guess we need to, and I don't know if this is possible, but we need something that we can ensure that yes, you are working on this new feature, but we also need we also need you to be available, and at least for some period of time, take care of that feature in case that it breaks, in case that it needs something else. And if you want to go away because time constraints or whatever, we also need you to at least like leave some notes, something that we can use to help train someone else. And I don't know if and at least something like this. And I know this is a very complicated wish list, but if we had more things of this sort, I think that a lot of the things that we are constantly firefighting will be a little bit more a little bit more simpler. Because people come and go, but a lot of the knowledge is lost, and then we are trying to figure out what they were thinking, how to get it back to the original state, which might be a little bit related to, we have to do some heroic act the week of code freeze, and then that's it's gonna take us 4 days, and then we have to magically come back to our work and actually figure out what needs to happen.
Yeah, it all makes sense. I just don't know, like this effort that we are running right now seems to be working well in terms of like we constantly making small progress and we exchange knowledge. So I feel that we have enough people with like with knowledge to contribute, but I also see that the progress that we're making is quite slow. So like I think this proposal is another extreme that will make progress much faster, but it will require a lot of heroic efforts, as you said, and it will require a lot of it may be constant firefighting. So it may get us into different side of a spectrum. I don't know whether there is a in the middle proposal of sorts. Maybe if like some of the tooling will be developed, or maybe after initial firefighting we can get into the like stable state, like steady state. But I don't know.
One thing that comes to mind is that, at least Kubernetes wise, I think it might be good to have like an official onboarding, not just like calls where, hey, let's talk about something. But some, if you went to a company and you start working on something, like uh, there's a solid onboarding that people have, and at least on that onboarding you get introduced to a lot of the things. You get to do something, some on hands thing with a couple teams, and we can do and like right now a lot of things in Kubernetes, they definitely need some uh, really huge improvements, and like those are things that we need to do right now. But it's like it is very possible that a lot of the people in this meeting, we're gonna take a vacation, we're gonna go on parent leave, uh, something, we're not gonna be available, and it's like we need I think we need to make sure that we have at least a small group of people who can cover, who can just be around. And uh, and I guess in my head that is a proposal for reaching the middle state, because what I see in a lot of places is that if you want to become a maintainer, it's like you really have to struggle through it, and if you want to struggle to it, you need to be able to commit huge amounts of time, which for a lot of people might not be desirable or possible.
Sorry, I tried to put some notes.
I agree with what he's saying. It's a big problem.
Okay. Does anybody else have any opinion on this proposal? Like, what can be changed? What other in the middle? Like, I like this in the middle proposal to just educate people better. Like, I think this will be great. And like, I mean, when you know a lot about end-to-end tests, you don't feel that threatened anymore. So you already have some tool belt. I mean, you constantly hit some other issues. Like, I mean, recently I struggled to configure a runtime class for my client cluster. But I mean, anyway, if you don't meet this kind of edge cases, then it's fine. Any other opinions? Any other suggestions on the middle ground? Okay, then let's go to the next item. Jorge, do you want to talk about? Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't plan this. It just happened, but I think the previous conversation is gonna be the perfect segue into this. So one huge area of complexity that we have is the node test suite. So if you can imagine the Kubernetes repo in your head, everything that is under KK, test, E2E node. Uh, so test E2E node is essentially, it contains the test node, and the document that Sergey just opened is super brief, just throwing ideas out there, describing the problem a little bit more. But overall, whenever we are running some end-to-end test, whenever we are running a test, we have a bunch of we have some a make file and a bunch of bash in KK and at the hack directory. That bunch of bash just fills in some default values, processes some flags, and then it calls an actual Go program. The Go program that it calls, in our case, and I think for most of the time in our case, is Go program that lives under test E2E node, which is what I'm referring to as a node test suite. And that test suite has a remote runner and a local runner, which thanks to Amin, this has been better documented now. But the remote runner essentially spins up a VM on GCP, and then it just SSHs artifacts and lets them run, and we just execute an end-to-end test. The thing is that the test suite is essentially the one in charge of configuring the test environment. Passing the figuring out how to run the kubelet, figuring out how to run your test, any dependencies that you need. It's gonna figure them out for you, and a lot of the things that a lot of the information that it needs to figure out how to do things are also present in the cluster E2E framework, which is if you look at E2E test, that is the thing that if you see framework, that's gonna be it. And the thing is that the framework was originally meant for cluster E2E tests, so those that depend on an entire Kubernetes cluster, as compared to the Node E2E test, which only assume that you have an API server, a kubelet, and a namespace controller. And a couple of so a lot of complexity, and some of the problems that we see every now and then is the Node test suite just hacks its way around the cluster E2E framework. And I think that if we looked into how we pass information, flags, runtime variables, anything that the test environment needs, if we looked into how it is passed into the Node test suite, and we developed a proper API for it, something cleaner, something more standardized, that will be an amazing contribution, and it will make running and understanding Node test a little bit simpler. So again, the document is just stating some of the is stating the problem statement that I just made in some other ways. He gives a couple examples, but overall, putting it out there for anyone who's interested in joining this collaboration, maybe some point during this week or in the near future. We can do another get together and go through it. If people prefer to do it asynchronously, just drop your comments in there. We'll continuously check up on it. But other than that, gonna stop ranting. And does anybody have any comments, questions, suggestions, criticisms?
So this is focused specifically at the Node EDs.
Yes. And if we can do anything to help the Node tests that are not part of the Node test suite, so everything that is under test E2E and Kubernetes, not under test E2E/Node. That's gonna be So that one is if we do anything for those, that's gonna be a plus. But I think that I don't have any numbers, but I think that if we fix the Node suite, or if we make it simpler, that's going to help the majority of the tests that we have.
Yeah, no, I can see that. There's definitely some touchy-feely bits in between the sort of general EDE framework and the Node framework that make it complicated, and then the various runners that I'm going to say populate the GCP info so that everything works. There's like multiple levels here that some of them are kind of invisible because they're in infra rather than in
it's 10:30
test the test directory in KK. So
yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'll show up, sure.
Count me in as well. I'm really interested to understand how it works and how we can make it better. Okay, any other comments on this topic?
I guess last thing that I can say is I'll send something on Slack and on the mailing list then we can figure out if we want to have another meeting or just do it async and catch up or something.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for driving it. Next one. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Dockershim. Like there were a lot of noise about Dockershim or Dockershim deprecation rather last week, and my community published amazing blog post and FAQ. So I mean, I think misunderstanding that release nodes cost was fixed. Now I want to understand, like, first I want to understand, is there easy way somebody can suggest that we'll make sure that we know which tests are running with Dockershim and which tests are running with any other runtime. So at least, like, so we will know that Dockershim test coverage is not. I mean, I know it's already like degrading. Like for the benchmark test, like we recently removed all the benchmark tests for Dockershim in favor of Containerd, just because Dockershim was is planned to be deprecated. So like we didn't want to maintain it for longer. So I want to make sure that core functionality is still being tested for Dockershim for a period of time while we support Dockershim. So we wouldn't like. I mean, we made this promise to customers that Dockershim will keep working, and at least for a couple of releases. And I want to make sure that we hold in our promise, even though we are not paying that much attention as before to Dockershim. So does anybody have an idea how to know for sure which tests are on which environment, or like can we get some high-level report, or maybe we can do some small improvement to have this report readily available?
I mean, do you want a job that just runs the tests with? I mean, yes, it's difficult to know which runtime is explicitly enabled. Certainly, I think we should. I think it was a mistake to not explicitly have sort of chosen a runtime originally when we did the original thing, and we're sort of implicitly switching it out by, doing one thing or another. So yeah, it would be great to have a explicit flag that says, Containerd or Docker or what's the other one? Creo, whatever. Yeah, that would be good. As far as knowing when it's running, I mean, I think a lot of the stuff sort of is defaulting to Containerd now, and possibly we should have a separate job with a test grid tab for Dockershim if we really want to, explicitly know about it. And then as far as comparing the two, I don't know, you just run both of them and look at the results.
Yeah, I'm less worried about comparing. I'm worried about comparing over time, so we're not degrading.
Yeah.
So do you think it will be best to just add this flag now, or like retroactively, or at least like validate a setting? Like if test is marked as Docker, then it will run. I mean, tests are running, should be running on both, right? So we cannot run only on one.
Yeah, I don't think we know. And I think if we go in and we start setting stuff, we're going to find that a lot of stuff that we think is running on one runtime is running on a different runtime. And we're going to find that Docker's kind of always running in the background. And thus, that's Docker starting Containerd rather than us starting it. I think it's going to be an interesting kind of, I think we're going to learn something if we go through and explicitly annotate everything. Happy to do that, but I don't want to be the only one pushing on these things and having somebody go, "Oh, everything's broken now."
Okay, I will start an issue to discuss it, and I will be working on it. I mean, it's a big thing for me these days. understand how Docker shim versus containerd works. And I would appreciate some help to understand how to do it the best way, because I mean, I have ideas, but yeah, I don't know test infra well enough to make sure I'm doing the best thing here. So yeah, I will start an issue.
Yeah, I'd like to follow what we're doing on this as well.
I'm gonna say the same. I have no idea of how Docker shim is set or specified or used in test. And I guess another cool thing to come out of this will be some documentation on how what exactly we're gonna use or do.
Yeah, who was it adding cryo test recently? I don't I remember seeing a PR, but I didn't follow up on that. Have somebody noticed it? Yeah, maybe I need to follow up with whoever added cryo test to understand how we can differentiate cryo from containerd from Docker going forward.
Yeah.
With this, moving away from Docker shim, is there any risk of, say, we start moving tests off of Docker shim, and then we end up breaking things without knowing it because we're losing test coverage?
The only tests that I'm aware of are tests that are explicitly for Docker shim. There shouldn't be any CRI tests that, like if we're switching from Docker shim to CRI, the CRI test should run. So there shouldn't be any, the coverage for CRI versus Docker shim should be the same. If anything, there should be a bunch of weird tests to ensure that the Docker shim version is doing the right thing. So.
Makes sense.
I mean, there's definitely probably a concern where we should identify that, like, the Docker shim test does this and the CRA test does that. Are they doing the same thing? Probably we should look at that while we're in here. But beyond that, we're trying not to add more Docker shim tests, more exceptions for that while we get rid of it.
Yeah, in 120 we added this timeout on exec props, and we found very late, I think even after code freeze, that it didn't work very well for Docker shim. So we found some regression there. And the reason we found this regression is we expected that pre-submits run on both Docker and containerd, but apparently they only run on containerd. So
right.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was a recent change. That's the whole containerd is the default now. So we weren't running that's right. This is what I'm saying, where back to that earlier topic where the PR, what we're running in the PRs doesn't necessarily match the CI because the CI takes longer. And so we don't want to, you have to come back sort of to what does the CI say, even if the PR passes. It's just sort of a delayed what's going on feedback loop, which kind of stinks, but what are we going to do?
Yeah, makes sense. Does anybody know if we run tests with different CNI providers, or we only run with one?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I have the same feeling about it, but I was like, maybe it's the same situation and we need to learn from somebody.
I think there is like an old scalability test that actually uses that actually specifies something that is in Kubernetes, but I don't think that it matters a lot. But SIG network is actually actively working on creating those. So I guess anything fun and interesting, we can just sync up with them. That is really a work in progress right now.
Okay. Why don't we have one of everything? It would be so much easier.
Yeah.
Okay, I will. Okay, so somebody already commented on these failures. I wanted to bring attention that we have these failures, and somebody added this comment that it was recently moved. So is there an issue that somebody investigated already?
Yeah, this is the one test. Okay, first of all, I don't know why the tests come out really weird looking when you look at them in test grid. But what caused this, well, at least what I think is the failure that we're looking at. Yeah, this one. At least these, what happened is they moved from, where is it? I don't see it on your page there. The orphans directory to conformance, because somebody was like, this test runs good, and it should be part of the conformance suite, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so they moved it. And it worked fine in the where it was before, and now it fails every time. And so this is one of those like, well, what's the difference between these jobs that it works in some environment and then we put it in the conformance environment and it fails? Like what, and this is also again back to, well, it passed when it went through the PR process and then it fails in CI. You know, we're back here again. We're discussing this yet again. So, but I didn't look into why is this failing. I can't tell.
I probably have time this week to try looking into this one.
Is there an
Okay.
issue? Is there an issue open for this?
I feel like there's got to be, but I lose track all the time.
Yeah,
I'll take-
I was wondering how people, like how you search for issues. Is it just full text search, or there is some mechanism to detect like if issue was created by somebody?
On my end, I either check email notifications to see if anyone said, "Hey, I'm working on this, and here's the issue." Other than that, I just type the name of the job in Kubernetes, and if I see something that is obvious and recent, I look at it. Otherwise, just create a new issue and either hope for someone to say, "Hey, this is a duplicate of this thing that I've been investigating," or for that to not happen.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Did you guys get an email about this one? Because I don't think I saw an email on this failure.
If we didn't see an email on this one, that might be that might be another thing that we also need to fix.
Well, I'll make sure that there's an issue on this, and if there isn't, I'll create one.
Oh, and actually on the email, I think actually I don't know if this is the same failure, but I see that. Never mind, this is not the same. I saw something for from November too, but different issue.
Okay. So we have an owner for that. So now containerd issues. It was a change like maybe 2 months back from Derek from containerd team, and he's changed. I mean, after he changed this YAML file, the path to which he changed doesn't exist on test environment any longer. Yeah, we asked if he want to work on it, and apparently he doesn't work on it. So I was wondering, do we need to revert it, or we want to like? Is there any takers for this issue to investigate?
That looks fun. Kind of want to take it.
Thank you, Jorge. So Morgan, your item.
This is just a PR that I don't really understand how to deal with the milestone. Who do I talk to? There's a message that at the end of the thing that says, you know, not merging because it needs to be on a milestone, but there's no information on how do I get it in a milestone, or you know, I don't really understand the process. I guess I'm not.
Okay, so right now it's a code freeze and like very late stage of 120 release, so nothing will be merged unless it's like super release blocking, which I don't think it is. And like I think they will be opening the merge gate somewhere in this week. maybe. I know
Okay.
that, yeah, release node's almost done and should be open, reopened
Well, I
back.
think this breaks capabilities for containerd, so, and probably Docker.
Is it test related on the? Is it only
Yeah, it's test related, but if somebody actually wants to use capabilities with anything but Creo, it would be good to have this in.
How long has this been an issue? Was it introduced on Kubernetes 1? What are we in? 120 or 121?
I think 120.
Was it introduced on Kubernetes 120?
Yeah, I think so.
So then next question. Will it be the end of the world if this was fixed on a patch of 120?
I don't know. I'm just trying to fix the tests. I have no idea. If people don't actually use capabilities, then sure.
And so I'm gonna try and answer both of your questions, but gonna start backwards. So the thing with adding something to the milestone, and I think this might be related to what I said earlier about having a proper onboarding for new people, is that if you look at the agenda, I added a link right beneath it. And to be a milestone maintainer, you essentially just need to PR yourself to that group. That's going to allow you to add things and remove things from the milestone. And it is essentially the same. I guess it should be an analog to being an approver or a reviewer for something. So if the SIG that you're working on knows that you are dependable, that you know what you're doing, then you should PR yourself in here, and people you'll have the power to manage milestones. The thing with the test is unless I'm looking at the calendar wrong, which I very well might be, I think the Kubernetes release is slated for tomorrow or so an ad at this point. I don't think that it might be a I don't think that it might be a possibility unless it is something that definitely breaks users.
Okay.
So if it isn't like the end of the world, then we can wait for the patch, which what is it, like 121, which usually comes 1 or 2 weeks after the release.
Okay. And so then I need to find somebody on that list to look at this, I guess.
It doesn't matter very much. After the release, the master branch is gonna open up again, and the milestone requirement is gonna go away.
Okay.
But in the future, whenever we are getting close to the code to the beginning of code trees, if you want to get in, either PR yourself into the group or ping anyone in that group. And for anyone who wants to be in that group or who thinks they should be on that group, please feel free to PR yourselves. And I guess the only thing is that whenever you're thinking about adding something into a milestone, please be very cognizant of the release team deadlines, because otherwise you might be breaking a release. For example, if we added something right now and the release is going out the door as we speak, so more power, more responsibilities.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, I'm not, I need to learn more about the release process.
Yeah.
I think, so.
In fact, right now we have the situation when somebody applied the milestone 120 and the change was not actually approved. So 120 and master are now not matching branches, which not supposed to be the case. But yeah. So as Jorge said, like you need to be very aware of the schedule. So that's why release team is probably the best people to handle milestones.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want the attention of, I guess, the release team for the next go around.
Thank you. Any other topics for today? We almost took a whole hour. Great discussions. If nothing else, let's call it. Thank you, everybody. We have few action items, and see you all next week. Bye-bye.
See y'all. Happy Monday.
Thanks, guys.